Sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Hey everyone, how you doing out there? Today, Friday afternoon, it is March the 4th. Springtime is well on its way here on the East Coast of the good old USA. And I saw this article on AppleInsider that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And they talked about a brand new Mac called the Mac Studio. Is that what they call it? Yeah, I think they did. The Mac Studio. So the question for today is, what would it take you to buy one of those Mac Studios? I don't think I'd be buying one. I'm pretty satisfied with my brand new M1 Max MacBook Pro. It's suited me very, very well so far since I've had it. Lone Star said, I thought I was calling someone during your intro. Yeah, that's little sound effects. We use those periodically. We have all kinds of sound effects. What do we have? All kinds of stuff. Here's one. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah, we have those. I'm going to mute them for right now so we don't have any feedback. How's everyone doing today? It's been a very, very slow, torturously slow Final Cut Pro situation. I didn't expect anything in January, February. I'm just going to check my audio real quick. Hold on one second. Let me just double check, make sure it sounds okay. Audio sounds fine. Audio sounds fine. Eric Emmerich says, all saved up for a new iMac Pro fully loaded, whatever that entails. When do you expect that, Eric? I've heard rumors about, so Apple has a spring event next Tuesday at March the 8th. They have a new spring event. But usually their spring event is for consumer stuff. That's what it usually is for. Let me just bring that up here real quick. Let me see. Apple event. Let me see what comes up. 4 days away. Here we go. Yeah, so normally we don't normally this event, one over here, Apple event next Tuesday, normally that's for consumers. Consumer stuff, right? Normally that's not professional stuff that happens in March. I can't recall when anything professional came out in March in an Apple March event. That's usually WWDC when that stuff comes out, right? I think so. So the question is, when you talk about an iMac Pro, didn't Apple say that they stopped making the iMac Pro? I think if they release a 37 or 30-inch or 32-inch iMac, I think that's going to be a Pro machine with the M1 Max or the M2, whatever they come out with. I think that itself will be a Pro machine, and they won't have to call it the iMac Pro anymore. We'll have to see. Am I expecting that this Tuesday? Not really. I think this is more consumer. They might release an iMac version, but listen, we don't know for sure. I have a new MacBook Pro M1 Max coming today, but my desktop Mac Pro 2013 is looking a little aged. Yeah, I like those old my Macs. Eric says, sometime this year, that's all I got. That's what I think, too. So our friend Tangier said, yes, I would purchase, depending on expansion options. If it doesn't have a lot of internal expansion, then I prefer a lot of ports like the 2013 Mac Pro. But the announcement says peak performance, which to me is something very powerful. We'll see. Yes, but I've seen when Apple does these little teasers, sometimes they have no relationship to what they actually announce. Peak performance could be a 5G iPhone SE. Anything with the M1 Max is going to be peak performance. With the M1 chips, the M2 chips, the M1, anything they introduce with that is going to be peak performance. That it could be a new iPad Pro. I'm just saying typically they make announcements about Pro hardware at WWDC, which is in June. Typically. Can they change that? Of course. Of course they can. For example, 2019, they introduced the new Mac Pro in 2019. 2017, that's when they introduced the iMac Pro at WWDC in 2017. So typically, we know WWDC is a worldwide developers conference. We know that. So that's normally mostly software-based and services-based and stuff. But they introduced Mac hardware at that event as well. And I think if they have new Mac hardware to introduce the pro level, they'll wait for WWDC. So you may ask, what are we talking about? You may ask that very well, and we will tell you. This is why I decided to pop in here today. So AppleInsider says new Apple Mac Studio may fit in between Mac Mini and Mac Pro. They're not saying, as far as I can tell, it says Apple may be planning on introducing a new Mac Studio computer with an Apple Silicon chip. Of course, it's an Apple Silicon chip, alongside new Mac Mini and Mac Pro devices. The so-called Mac Studio will be a device that slots in between Mac Mini and Mac Pro. The device will mostly be based on the Mac Mini's design, but will feature much more powerful hardware. So they're not saying that's going to be featured this spring event. They're just saying they said they've heard, probably from little birdies, that this is in the work, and the name. Christopher Ashworth says prosumer. Typically, prosumer in the pro market is WWDC. Doesn't mean they can't change their mind and do it now. They certainly can. They've changed up a lot of things in the last couple of years that was not really expected. So, yes, they absolutely can. They can do whatever they want. If they have a Mac Pro ready, iMac Pro ready, they'll introduce it. I'm thinking they're going to introduce a new, instead of a 27, they have a 24 now. Instead of a 27, maybe they'll go to a 32, just a regular iMac. But it'll be a Pro machine because it'll have the new M1 chips. Maybe have the M2 chips in it. So they'll do whatever they want. I'm just talking about my expectations typically for the spring event are not for Pro hardware. Anything Pro. I mean, not Final Cut Pro, not Pro hardware. Typically, that's WWDC if they're going to introduce something that year. But it could be, iPad, some kind of new iPad Pro, MacBook, new MacBook Air, the Mac Mini. Now, what's going on with that Mac Mini? Eric says the 7K monitor sounds silly. Why not 8K? It sounds silly? Why does it sound silly? I'm not sure what that means. Let's take a look out backyard. There we go. Not much activity out there on the bird feeder today. Not much activity out there. Let me just turn this on. So, yeah, this is the backyard. There's the bird feeder. There's the thing. We're getting ready for spring around here on the East Coast, that's for sure. Getting ready for spring. I guess what I'm interested in from you, the audience, is what will it take for you to buy one of these Mac Studios? Mac Studio is an odd sounding name. It could be the Mac Studio. They could call it well, how about just the Mac? The desktop Mac, but Studio sounds good. Certainly could. Christopher says YouTube content providers. Certainly. YouTube content providers. I mean, what's not on YouTube nowadays? Everything's on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. I mean, some of the best video I watch is on YouTube. I'll wait another year if better iMacs only have the Max chip, already have that in the 16-inch MacBook Pro 16-inch. Yeah, I would say the same thing. If you don't, do you need a MacBook Pro and an iMac? Do you need both? I have the 2019 Mac Pro that I'm probably going to be selling because it turns out that I didn't use it as much as I thought I might. So, especially since I got this MacBook Pro, then the MacBook Pro will be going, if I go to NAB, the MacBook Pro will be going with me, and I'll be broadcasting in the evenings when I'm in the hotel room, when I do the wrap up for the day and show clips and stuff. The MacBook Pro will be with me, and I'll be doing that. Christopher says, 7K is great for some that edit 4K with room for user interface and timeline in Final Cut Pro, absolutely. But 6K is fine for that too. Yes, it is. 6K. Of the things that I spend money on for Apple products, the MacBook Pro was expensive, $4,200, something like that. The Mac Pro that I got was very expensive, and both of those machines are fantastic. The Mac Pro has been great for years. It's absolutely the best Mac I've ever gotten. I'd have to say that the new MacBook Pro with the M1 Max Mac chip is probably edged out the 2019 Mac Pro at this point. Could you imagine a 2018 Mac Pro getting an M2 daughter board update? No, I can't, because the 2018 Mac Pro is Intel. And the motherboard for the M1, well, you mean the whole entire guts fitting into a 2018. It says daughter board update. I don't see that happening. What would be the incentive for Apple to do that? What would be the incentive? They want to sell the new Macs. Let me just adjust this a little bit. There we go. Down, down, down. They would want to sell the new Macs. I guess the question is, that I wanted to pose to everybody today, what would it take you to buy one of these things? Let me see what way I'm going here. What would it take you to buy one of these Macs? The Mac, the smaller version of the Mac Pro, what would it take? Would it be price? Would that be the main consideration? Would it be performance? Would that be the main consideration? Would it be a combination of both of those? For me, it would be. I'm not in the market for a new Mac at this point. As a matter of fact, I haven't even bought the GH6 yet that I was talking about. I just filmed too much with my iPhone. I just film too much with this these days. This is such a great, great device. great cameras, 3 times optical zoom, that I just find myself using this way more than my GH5. So will I get a GH6? Probably. But I'm not going to rush out and buy it the very beginning. I don't need to be in the beginning of the line for that. I'll wait for it to be out for a while before I get it in people's hands. I mean, I love the way it looks. And they have that new dual ISO with some kind of enhanced low light performance. Screaming performance, 4 streams of red 8K. Yeah, I'd like to see that myself. I think my next desktop will require M2 Max better than any new MacBook Pro M1 Max. Yeah, we'll see how that works. Typically, they'll have a new MacBook Pro with the M2 Mac, with the M2 chip as well. It'd probably be every iteration will probably go up a little bit. Have you thought about the Nikon Z9 has 8K and will get ProRes RAW? It's not, ProRes RAW internally? I don't think so. Are you telling me that that'll record ProRes RAW internally? You know, here's the problem, Christopher, with that. I already have a set of lenses for my GH5. I have 5 lenses. So I don't have to buy any lenses. I have the XLR audio attachment that goes XLR audio in with a hot shoe, not via the little 1/8-inch mini jack on the side. I have everything I need. If I got a GH6, $2,200, I'm ready to go out of the box. I got lenses, I got XLR audio. That's the reason I'm looking at the GH6. Plus, of course, there's plenty of improvements. It would have to have 1 or 2 PCIe slots and a low price point, but that's not going to happen. Well, I think it'll have a few PCIe slots because why else make a desktop? If you're not going to have PCIe slots, it's just a Mac Mini, right? Low price point, Apple, no. Apple's a premium product. Everything's expensive with Apple. That's one of the things you have to deal with if you want Apple. I mean, my iPhone's expensive. I'm looking forward to the new iPhone 14 next September, October. Maybe a 4 times optical zoom at that point. Who else knows what it is? But I really like my iPhone 13 Pro Max. It's a fantastic machine. I also like my MacBook Pro M1 Max. Both of them have been great pieces of equipment. But I'm going to wait on the GH6 at this point. So let me just see. Apple events, that's that. Do I have any comments there? Let's see if there's any comments. Nothing there yet. So we are, who's planning on going to NAB? Anybody planning on going to NAB this year? Mac Mini isn't too bad. Listen, if you need a desktop, you don't want to get an iMac, you don't want to get a MacBook Pro because of the cost. The Mac Mini, whatever the next version is going to be a fantastic buy. It's going to have M1 Max or M2, whatever it's got coming. It's going to have more ports. It's going to have HDMI. You probably won't get a keyboard and mouse with it still, but what are you going to do? I think the trash can Mac Pro, that didn't have a keyboard and mouse with it, correct? I really like the ProRes RAW codec that we got with the Z6 and Atomos and Ninja, yes. I don't think any camera is going to record ProRes RAW internally because of the patent dispute that they have with RAW. Externally, yes. The GH6 is going to record ProRes RAW externally with a Ninja recorder. The GH6 is going to record a ProRes RAW. The GH6 has internal ProRes recording. 2 flavors, regular ProRes and ProRes HQ, internal to the GH6. It's coming in a firmware update. No, I'm sorry, that's already here. So the GH6 records 5.7K ProRes internally, right out of the box when it's shipping. 5.7K, 30 frames per second ProRes internally. With the firmware update, they're going to do some other frame rates and other resolutions, but out of the box, 5.7K ProRes regular in HQ internal to the GH6. And with a future update, with a new update to on one of the Ninjas, it's going to do ProRes RAW over HDMI. Those are both big deals. Eric Emmerich says no to NAB. Let's look at who's coming to NAB. Excuse me, who's coming to NAB at this point. Let's just take a gander here. So far, this is what we have. Sony Electronics, Panasonic, OWC, Canon, Blackmagic Design, LucidLink, AJA Video Systems, ARRI, Atomos, B&H Photo, Backblaze, Digital Anarchy, Grass Valley, Hedge, Promise Technology, Telestream, not going to be anywhere in 2022. They said they're not doing any live shows, not just NAB. They're not going to do IBC or anything else. So that's what Avid's doing. Had to pay $250 for the red tax. You had to pay that, Christopher? You paid that to get the RAW on top of buying your camera? That would be amazing if that's what you had to do. I didn't realize that was something was going on. Was just going to say the Max Mini is on my radar, wondering what parameters it'll have. Well, it'll have the new chip, M1 Max, maybe an M2. It's going to have more ports. It's going to have at least three or four Thunderbolt ports. It doesn't need the MagSafe like the MacBook Pro has. You don't need that on the Mac Mini. So I'm going to say 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports. It's going to have HDMI. It might have 1 or 2 USB ports. Who else? What else? But it's going to be a powerful, small desktop computer. I don't need it because I have the MacBook Pro. But this MacBook Pro is not going to be on my desk forever. I only got the MacBook Pro because NAB and the Creative Summit. When I travel to those two places, I like to have a MacBook Pro, not just an iPad and an iPhone. I certainly can get along with just an iPad and an iPhone, absolutely. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I go. 5.7, 10-bit, but not 12-bit like RAW. It's doing ProRes RAW externally. The GH6 is doing ProRes RAW externally with a Ninja recorder. Whether that's 10-bit or whether that's 12-bit, I don't know. Most of my stuff ends up on YouTube, so it's not that important for me to be 12-bit. That's a lot of vendors. I guess we are back to business. So here's the thing that I've been watching this situation with big crowds and stuff. I watched the crowd, and as a matter of fact, let me bring this up. I'll go show you something rather than just talk about it. So here we go. So I'm going to pull this up. Let me keep the audio down so it's not a problem. This is what I'm talking about. This is what went on in December. This is the New York City Comic-Con. Now look at this. This was December 2021. Comic-Con. Does it look like not crowded, it looks very, very crowded. So look at this. This was in December when things weren't as good as they are now, and hopefully will continue to get better through April. This is not, I didn't do anything from CES, but this is the Comic-Con in New York. And like I said, in December. So lots of people everywhere. I expect NAB to be similar to that. If things continue to get better, where'd my mouse go? Got to get my mouse working. If things continue to get better between now and the next 6 or 8 weeks, NAB is going to be a nice place to go. So there's a couple, obviously people will be wearing masks, the vaccination status. NAB says masks are not a requirement at this point. They're recommended, not a requirement. One thing I'm not going to do, if I interview people, I'm not going to interview people with masks on because it's not a good look. And it sounds like this. When I talk to you, it sounds like this. So audio is bad and the visual is bad. So I'm not going to interview people on camera with masks on. I'm not saying about wearing them when you're walking around and stuff. I'm just saying from an interview standpoint. So if things continue to get better, there's already a big lineup. One of the main criteria for me going to NAB, number one, I'm looking for sponsorship. So if anybody knows of a sponsor, let me just have them send them my way. But the other thing is Blackmagic Design, Sony, Panasonic, a lot of these big vendors are going to be there. Avid is not, but I don't think I've ever visited the Avid booth. There's no reason for me to go there, except I have a friend, one of my friend's brothers works there. He says, yes, to get the RAW for the Z6, you pay $250? That's incredible. But once again, that's external recording, right? Is it internal or external? Would love a middle-of-the-road monitor for either a possible MacBook Pro or Mac Mini. Absolutely. Interesting observation. So the point I'm making about NAB is Comic-Con. It was crowded as heck. Was it as crowded as the last years? Probably not. Probably about 75-80% of capacity of what they normally do. But that was December when things were not good. It was that crowded in December. Now, 8 weeks, if things keep going down and keep getting better and better and better, it's going to be a more comfortable NAB, and people are going to be there. Before Omicron, our firm festival was in person too, with few masks at that time. Agree. If no one wants to watch it, that's the way I'm shooting now too. Absolutely. External recording. That's what I thought. On Ninja V. You had to pay to get RAW on the Ninja V. That's interesting. I'm surprised they didn't pay it. 2 terabyte SSD fills up fast. Listen, absolutely does. As a matter of fact, I put up let me pull this up. I put up a little post about, let me see if I can pull that up for you. I put up a post for this. This is what I did. I have over there at my, let me see, one of my other sites, richardtaylortv.tv, I put up a GH6 ProRes data rates and storage. I did an estimate for 5.7 because they don't have any rates on that at this point. But this is a 1 terabyte SSD or card. You can get a card or SSD. You get 55 minutes of 5.7K at 60 frames per second 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 2 hours at 24p. But one of the things, these are all the data rates. So it's really reasonable. I mean, look at 24p, 18 hours, 51 minutes, 1 terabyte card. This is ProRes, by the way. ProRes HQ gets 12 hours and 36 minutes at 1080p, at 1080. So it's very reasonable. The reason I'm bringing that up is because the GH6 is adding SSD recording with a firmware update. They have USB 3.2 Rev 2, I think, so it's very, very fast. He goes, no, things were good early December. Not around here they weren't. Not around here they weren't. Things were closing down and going back into lockdown around here in the East Coast. I mean, everything was worse in December. But that didn't stop. That didn't stop people from going to New York. New York? I mean, New York is everybody's going to New York. But anyway, I just showed you the video. So the Comic-Con had plenty of people there. Most of them wore masks. I think the masks were required in December. But like I said, at this point, things could change. Their masks are not a requirement at NAB. They're recommended. They're recommended. At this point, vaccination status is a requirement at NAB. That's also being relaxed in some places as we learned more about that. But that's not my consideration at this point. I mean, of course, I want to be safe. I want everybody else to be safe. But like I said, I'm not going to be interviewing anybody with a mask on. Christopher says, they did a good job for recording 68 billion colors in 12-bit. I shouldn't complain. Looking at the Canon 5RC, but don't like shooting video with the stills body. Well, first off, once again, if I was going to get a camera besides the GH6, it would probably be the Sony a7S III at this point. But if I got that, that would end up costing me $6,000 to $7,000. I got to get new lenses. I got to get XLR audio, professional audio into that thing somehow. I'm not going in the little preamp. That's not going to happen. So, couple of lenses. The Sony is like almost $4,000 for the body. I have to get media cards for it. It would cost me $6,000 to $7,000. If I stay with the GH line, the GH6, I have all the lenses. I have the XLR audio already. It all works fine. I have SSD drives that in the future event I'm going to be able to record to those. So it's $2,200 versus $6,000 or $7,000. Anything, if I switch and can't use my lenses, it's going to be a lot, 2 or 3 times the amount of the body alone. Christopher says Sony F7 is nice. Yeah, I see a lot of those. So the criteria for me on getting a camera, at this point, I wanted to record ProRes internally. Okay? I want to record ProRes, not ProRes RAW, but ProRes. I wanted to record ProRes internally because it's just a really nice codec to work with, isn't it? Especially if I can do it on an SSD. I can just disconnect the SSD, plug it into my Mac, and just transfer it to my RAID and start editing on it. No transcoding. Not that I transcode anyway. I've been shooting on GH5s for years. If I don't shoot for goodness sakes, my iPhone 13 Pro Max shoots ProRes internally. Okay? This camera shoots ProRes internally. It's built in. You don't have to worry about it. So I haven't shot too much because most of the stuff I'm shooting is not that mission critical that I have to worry about color correcting and being 10-bit and all that. By the way, the Panasonic GH6, it's all 10-bit. The majority of all their things are all 10-bit at this point. Think of that. That camera is $2,200. It records ProRes and ProRes HQ internally. All the codecs, the majority of codecs are all 10-bit now. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. The two things that would hold me back on the GH6 is the autofocus is still not as good as the Sony. and the low light performance is much better. They have an enhanced, what do they call it? Enhanced something that uses two different versions of a exposure and blends them into one. Something like the RE does. So that's something new that they have, enhanced something or other. I forget what it's called. So that makes things a lot better, but it's still not as good as the Champion, which is the A7S3, as far as I know. That's as far as I know. Here we are in the backyard. You can see a reflection of my dining room chairs in that reflection of the big glass picture window. The birds are not active. I don't see any birds on the in the feeder today. It's kind of weird. It's not. What is the temperature? It's only 43 degrees. It's supposed to be up it's been in the 60s. It's supposed to get up in the 70s over the weekend, I think. Christopher says, I still use a Panasonic DVX200, which has, again, 10-bit ProRes HQ recording, and externally the Shogun Inferno with its HDR display, which makes a really good review. Yeah, that sounds like a winner. That sounds great. I spend money on the MacBook Pro. I spent money on my iPhone. One thing I don't spend that much money on, because I'm not a colorist, I don't do color grading. I'm not going to spend $5,000 on a display, the Apple display. Maybe they'll introduce a new display at the spring event. But I think that's more WWDC stuff, don't you think? Christopher says, wow, 70 degrees. Over this weekend, well, it is March. Spring is March the 20th. Happens to be on my birthday. I was born on the first day of spring. And so March the 20th is the spring equinox, equal day, equal night, as close as it can get. That's March the 20th. I think it's a Sunday this year. I think it's a Sunday. So 2022, I can absolutely say we are going to see a new version of Final Cut Pro. That's not a surprise to anybody, is it? No, of course not. When will we see it? Do you think Apple will do some kind of a update like right prior to NAB? I don't expect Apple will be at NAB. I will be looking for anything Final Cut Pro related if I do indeed go to NAB. Speaking of going to NAB, so here's how you can support me. If you want me to go to NAB, here's how you can support me. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor. Just Richard Taylor, not Richard Taylor TV. Buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee when I'm at NAB. That's how you can support me. I've never asked for any support, financial support from listeners all these years, but I figured I'd just set this up. You want to buy me a coffee for doing some neat stuff, you can do it right there. Buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor. You can do that right there. And I'll save up the money that I get for coffees at NAB for sure. And maybe we'll have a coffee in the morning before I start broadcasting live. So here's the deal. I am booked for NAB. I have a hotel and I have a flight. The flight's already changed. The one flight's already changed once. I expect that to keep on happening. NAB starts on Sunday this year. So it's easy to cancel. You can cancel 1 or 2 days before and there's no charge. You can cancel the airline ticket, Southwest, and you can also cancel the hotel room. No problem. So if things got weird or I didn't feel comfortable going, or I'm looking for a sponsor to help with some of the costs of going to NAB. But if I go, I'm planning on going. If I do go, I'll be broadcasting from there, during the day on my iPhone, walking around, broadcasting. I'll be filming, of course, and I'll take clips back to my hotel room, and I'll assemble clips, and I'll always do a evening event, especially for our Australian friends. That'll be morning for them. And I'll do put clip show together. We'll talk about things, see what's going on. When the Pro Mac computer was announced, whatever that is, then new Final Cut Pro. They already had the new MacBook Pro. They introduced a new version for the MacBook Pro. So the last 2 years, 10.5 that came out when the M1s first came out, the Mac Mini and the MacBook, the 13-inch MacBook Pro or 14-inch MacBook Pro, Final Cut Pro 10.5. Final Cut Pro 10.6 came out with the new MacBook Pro that I got. We're expecting either a 10.6 update or 10.7 at some point this year. I would say if it's going to be 10.7, it's probably going to be in the fall. They may show something at WWDC and then release it in the fall. But that doesn't preclude us from getting an update for 10.6 with some nice features for us. Slip it in right before NAB comes around. That way people can talk about it at NAB. If you remember, Apple released ProRes RAW around NAB. They released ProRes RAW in NAB. And that year, Apple was not there. Apple presented at NAB in 2017 and 2018. Apple presented in the South Hall, official Apple presentation in the South Hall at NAB 2017 and 2018. They did not at 2019. They weren't there. And I do not expect them to be at this NAB because they're still, they're still skittish. Although they took the mask mandate off of their Apple stores for visitors, they no longer need to wear masks. When I went and got my MacBook Pro, I got it the day it was released into the stores. I had to wear a mask into the store. But there was no mask mandate to go into the mall, so I didn't wear one in there. Big open spaces, high ceilings, nobody's around. If I'm outside, I don't wear masks, and I do inside if somebody requires it. That's fine. Businesses are allowed to do that. Hey, speaking of that, has anybody seen the new Batman movie? I want to go see it, but I don't know if I want to sit with a lot of people in a theater and everybody's got masks on. I'm not sure if that detracts from the experience. It looks interesting for sure. Did you know that the same guy that created JPEG technology created ProRes codec? I did not know that. What's his name? For sure, there will be new Resolve at NAB. Oh, absolutely. Listen, they could have two updates between now and NAB. Absolutely, there'll be a new Resolve, probably 18. I mean, Blackmagic's going to be there, so I presume it's going to be 18. So let's go look at that real quick. Let me see. So here we are. Here's the show floor. So this is interesting this year. Normally, they did the South Hall meeting rooms. This was where Blackmagic was and everything. But they're not doing NAB there this year. They're doing a Central Hall, North Hall, something meeting rooms, North Hall Central Library, and this is brand new. The West Hall is brand new. So instead of doing the South Hall, they're doing the West Hall, which is a brand new location. So that's pretty cool. And I've learned in my experiences going to NAB in the past, I've been sponsored by LumaForge in the past. They've sponsored me to go to NAB, so I covered their events, of course. But let's go over here. This is the exhibitor list. featured exhibitors, 273 results for exhibitor lists so far. So Atomos is going to be there. You can see that. Let me pull that over. There's lots of people that are going to be there. Now, let me... So this is featured exhibitors, all exhibitors. Okay, here we go. All exhibitors. There's lots of exhibitors. It keeps going to, it keeps going to features. I'm not sure why it does that. I don't want the featured, I want all the exhibitors that are going to be there. Lots of exhibitors are going to be there. Look, I'm just excited to get back outside again. You know, I'm excited to meet people. I'm going to talk to people in person. Here we are, AT&T, Allen, lots of people. Atomos, like I said earlier. This is just the A list. Axle AI, B&H Photo and Video, Backblaze. These are all places that I will be visiting because I support them. Barron. Black Box, and here we go, Black Magic Design. Black Magic Design is going to be North 302. Let's see if it goes. I'm not sure if it's going to take us there. I guess it will. That's all right. We'll just stay here. Go back to where we were. Internet's slow today. Here we go. Black Magic Design is going to be right there. Let's see who else is on here. Buy them. Usually there's a lot of cool people buy them. AMD, Chiron, Edit Share. All kinds of people that are going to be there. Western Digital. Great Britain Pavilion. Now, what the heck is that? Have they always had that? I'm not sure what that is even. I don't even know. I don't remember seeing that before. But anyway, it looks like Black Magic Design. It has a nice big, once again, gigantic. There's Ross Video. I think Ross Video is from New York. Quantum, Dell Technologies, Cobalt. The interesting thing is I know OWC is going to be there, but I don't think that Frame.io is going to be there. I haven't seen them there yet. Main stage. Black Magic Design. Fantastic. I mean, I'm just glad that they're going to be there. I always enjoy their presentations. Now, typically, they had a presentation that was Monday morning. This year, NAB starting on Sunday morning. I'm getting there like 8 o'clock Sunday morning, so I'm not sure. Roz says, I saw Dune, and when people eat, they take masks off, was not comfortable. I just don't, I'm so used to, in the old days, as Carly Simon says, in the good old days, you never know when you're experiencing the good old days. I look at it as I'm always thinking, this is the good old days right now, not in the past. Right now is the good old days. So the good old days, we went to theaters, we didn't worry about masks. I don't know if I can wear a mask for 3 hours, 3 hours and 10 minutes, I think the Batman movie is. I went to the theater 2 days ago, Death on the Nile, all good except the usual talking from the people in front of me. Boy, that's aggravating, isn't it? When people, pull out their cell phones or whatever, what are you going to do? I mean, around here, you have to be careful. Not around here where I live, but like in Baltimore. I'm interested in what Atomos plans for release in the coming years. I have to run. Thanks, Richard. Thank you. So I use Backblaze Cloud Storage. I love Backblaze. It's very reasonable, and it's saved my bacon a couple of times when I accidentally erased one of my SSD drives. I was trying to partition it to put on Monterey and what was the other one? The last two. Catalina? I can't remember. And I was trying to triple boot it with my Mac Pro, and somehow when I partitioned the drive, whatever the heck you do with SSDs, I erased it. But I had a complete backup in Backblaze, and I downloaded everything back. Great Britain needs video. Of course they do. Close Encounters in Star Wars in the theater was good old days cinema. It certainly was. I have a theater in Westminster, which is about 20-minute drive from me. It's a big multiplex, 9 theaters. And that's where I would go. I live in Carroll County, Maryland, outside of Baltimore and Washington. North of Baltimore, northwest of Baltimore and due north of Washington, D.C. I was born in Washington, D.C. So what do you think? Mac Studio, do you like the name? Do you at least like the name? I have to see how that works out. It's an interesting name. Film, to me, has got something magical. It is. And seeing stuff on the big screen is really, really incredible. I remember when I was a kid, I sat all the way in front of a big screen one time, and I was watching something, and it's almost like you can see the bullets go across the screen. It was incredible to be that close. But I like theaters still, especially for something like Batman. I think it looks interesting. That new guy, the new Batman. Sounds powerful, absolutely. So we'll see. I mean, I initially I said I don't really want to go if I got to wear a mask, but I like everybody else wearing masks, so what are you going to do? We'll see. But NAB, and then we have... So what do you think? Would you get one of these? Would you get one of these mini Mac Pros if it had a couple of PCIe slots for expansion? There's no sense in having that form factor if you don't have PCIe slots and you have interchangeable graphics cards and PCIe slots. That's the only reason you would get that. Otherwise, you just get a Mac Mini, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I think we're good for today. Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? January, it was a dud for Final Cut Pro News. February was a dud for Final Cut Pro News. There isn't much going on anywhere. Let me just check in case there's anything going on over... Well, I guess can I do that now? Since I still use an iMac Pro full spec, so it's time to upgrade, yeah. Cheers, absolutely. So, yeah, I've been on for an hour. That's good. Is there anything else going on Final Cut Pro news-wise? I haven't seen anything. I've been watching. I usually come on if there is Final Cut Pro news. If there's an update to Final Cut Pro, I'll be on within an hour or two, as long as it's not out at midnight. What do you think? I think we're good. So here is my setup. This is what I'm monitoring. This is all my stuff that I'm monitoring. Everything there. You can see the audio. Where is it? Over here? Over here. There it is. The audio levels that I can keep track of. But this is what this is what I do. As a matter of fact, why is that up there? Kind of surprised. Well, anyway, this is what I watch. Everything that I'm watching when I do these live streams. This is Ecamm Live. That's what I use, Ecamm Live. No need second screen of the iMac Pro. So when I had my iMac, I always had a second screen with it. the old iMac. I had a 2017 that I traded in for my Mac Pro. I traded the 2017 iMac in on my Mac Pro, and I'm not planning on buying any more Mac this year. I don't need it. This MacBook Pro is as powerful as any desktop I've ever used. It's fantastic. I have two screens that I'm using right now. I have the main screen that you just saw. I have a side screen. Plus, I have the MacBook Pro screen. I got three screens. It's fantastic. But anyway, everybody can... I think I'm the only person I know that's going to... well, I know a couple more people that are going to NAB. But I'm not going to make any announcement of who's going. They can make their own announcement. All right? Listen, everybody have a great weekend. If you go, be safe wherever you go. Let me see, with this 43 degrees here on the east coast of the good old USA. And I'm going to... Will it drive two 6K XDR screens? I don't know. No idea. I'm not going to be buying any XDR screens. I don't need those. Of course, it can drive one. I have I have two screens up. So I use the OWC Thunderbolt 4 dock is what I use. And I also have some other docks. I guess the question is, will we see an M2 chip announced at the spring event? That's one of the questions. And will it be more powerful than the M1 Max? Don't know the answer to these questions. I'm not interested in a desktop going forward. I will buy a new MacBook Pro. When they come out with the M3 version of the MacBook Pro or the M2 Max or whatever they have, I will trade this one in on that, and I will get a new one because I really like this MacBook Pro. The speakers are fantastic. The microphone is really, really good. Whatever the heck they're doing, I unplugged my desktop speakers because the MacBook Pro sounds really, really good. It sounds a nice, flat, accurate sound. And the actual microphone on the MacBook Pro also is pretty darn good. Let me pull that up a second. I'm going to pull the MacBook Pro microphone up. It's not going to sound as good as this one, but listen to this. Okay, this is the MacBook Pro microphone. It doesn't sound too bad. This is probably what I'll be using when I'm in the hotel room over there at NAB. This is the MacBook Pro microphone. Now, it's not going to sound as good as my Neumann TLM 103 and my audio interface. I know that, but it sounds pretty darn good, doesn't it? I'm curious, but I think it does sound good. Let me go back to my studio mic. All right, now we're back to the studio mic. Doesn't sound bad. They've just done incredible work. I'm a big fan of the MacBook Pro. They brought the ports back. They brought HDMI back. They brought MagSafe back. They gave us 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. They gave us a card slot. All these things they took away. Apple said, we know better than you do. You don't need HDMI. You don't need MagSafe. You don't need card slots. And they were wrong. Apple was absolutely wrong. They admitted they were wrong, and they brought those things back for us. I don't want the thinnest MacBook Pro and the thinnest iPhone. I want something with meat. Where's the beef, as they used to say, the Wendy's commercial. Jason Williams says the mic on the MacBook Pro has a warmer sound and feel. There you go. But it's really nice. Well, it's also further away. this is about 6 inches away from me right now. So I just wanted to do that. The MacBook Pro, the MacBook Pro is probably 18 inches away. I'm not even sure. It's at the bottom somewhere. So, I mean, I could use that. If I'm going to be out portable somewhere and I'm at broadcasting, I'm not going to hook up a microphone and a separate camera and stuff, because the MacBook Pro finally has a 1080p camera. Finally, they gave us a Pro camera on the MacBook Pro. Finally. That was one of the things that I wanted, was a Pro camera. So I'll be using that camera most likely, and I'll be using the built-in microphones. Maybe not in the hotel room. Maybe I'll use something else. I got a couple of, I got the Rode Wireless Go 2s. I have those that I can hook on that I'll be wearing when I'm on the show floor if I go to NAB. Anyway, everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate it. My name is Richard Taylor. You can support me over there at buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor. Buy me a coffee. I need some coffee for NAB for sure. Anyway, I'm going to get on out of here. I appreciate everybody stopping in. I'll talk to you next time. Richard Taylor TV on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Talk to you all later.